It is time once again, as it's time to transition to BT18 Elemental Successor. We have it. As today's first off the cuff for BT18, we'll focus on what's the scoop with Red Hybrid and all the cards that are associated with it for BT18. Now, before I get into it, as always, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. It does help out. And we are obviously on the 250 subscriber celebration. So I want to thank you all for being here, and all those who are watching who are not a part, maybe subscribe, as this is obviously for you. As one of the key factors that we want to talk about when we look at these cards is obviously just a reminder that when you get a first look at these cards, so do I, which allows me to talk about these interesting cards to you guys, but simultaneously allow you the chance to find out what they do. Now, this is actually interesting. As you could tell, this is called Power Red because all of the support I'm going to be covering today is all the red associated cards, which is a lot. There's a lot of cards focused around the new hybrid type style strategy, and there's a lot to go through, so we will get into it now. But we do have basically broken up multiple segments of the red cards to work with the brand new hybrid strategy that are focused around these new Tamers as trying to generate a brand new strategy. So we'll get into it as always. So the first panel here we have is all the main red cards. So a lot of cards will be dual color in this line, but these are the cards that are primarily either solid red or they are partially red, which is the key factor here. And some of them only have a few associated cards. So we'll start off obviously with Bokumon and Agunimon as we'll move into it now. So obviously starting off with Bokumon, on play you reveal the top 3 cards of your deck, and you get to add 1 card with the hybrid or 10 warriors trait, and 1 red Tamer card with inherited effects among them to your hand. Obviously return the rest of the deck bottom. And then your turn, once per turn, when any of your Digimon or Tamers would Digivolve into Digimon with the hybrid or 10 warriors trait, you gain 1 memory. Now moving into Agunimon, you can Digivolve this card on top of Takuya Kambara for a cost of 2, Burning Greymon for a cost of 0. Then when Digivolving, you may return 1 card with the hybrid or 10 warriors trait, or 1 Tamer card with inherited effects from your trash to the hand. Additionally, you get 2000 DP as this card's inheritable. Now let's move into Grumblemon and Gigasmon, the Spirit of Earth, as they come here as red for the first time and are very interesting for the strategy. So starting off with the Grumblemon, it Digivolves on top of Gigasmon for a cost of 0, which is important for a special evolution cost. Then on play or when Digivolving, you get to delete 1 of your opponent's Digimon with 3000 DP or less. And 4 is inheritable when attacking once per turn. Delete 1 of your opponent's Digimon with 3000 DP or less. Really designed to spot removal small Digimon. Then moving into Gigasmon, it Digivolves on top of Grumblemon for a cost of 1. Then on play or when Digivolving, 1 of your Digimon gain Rush for the turn. And then for its inheritable, when attacking once per turn, you delete 1 of your opponent's Digimon with 3000 DP or less, just carrying the same effect that that Grumblemon possessed. Now we will move into our blue-red color cards. So we actually have 4 here, which are interesting, as we have first Penguinmon and Kumamon here. I always want to call it Penguinomon, but it's not correct. So let's start off with Penguinmon. So your turn, once per turn, when this Digimon or any of your Tamers would Digivolve into multicolor blue or red Digimon cards, reduce the Digievolution cost by 1. Simple. And then its inheritable is jamming. So very good. Now let's move into the brand new Kumamon here. So it Digivolves on top of Tommy, obviously for a cost of 2. And then can Digivolve on top of Korikakumon for a cost of 0. Then when Digivolving, you get to trash to the bottom 2 Digievolution cards of 1 of your opponent's Digimon. Then when attacking once per turn, 1 of your Digimon or Tamers may Digivolve into a blue or red Digimon card with the hybrid trait, and in the hand with the Digievolution cost reduced by 1. And then for a rule for specifically this card, is always treated as having the Ice Snow trait. So cool. And then all turns, when this Digimon would leave the battle area other than by your effects, you may play 1 Tamer card with inherited effects from this Digimon's Digievolution cards without paying the cost. Now let's move into the brand new Korikakumon and the brand new Daipenmon, which are associated for this support. So starting off with Korikakumon, it can Digivolve on top of Tommy for a cost of 3, and Kumamon for a cost of 1. and it carries jamming inherently. And the on play and when Digivolving until the end of your opponent's turn, one of their Digimon with no Digi-Evolution cards can't suspend. This is also considered as having the Ice Snow trait. And then as it's inheritable, it carries jamming. So very good. Now let's talk about Dipenmon, which can Digivolve on top of any blue/red level 4 with the hybrid trait for a cost of 3. And then it has a hand main effect by placing Kumamon and Korikakumon from your trash under one of your blue or red Tamers. Digivolve it into this card for a Digi-Evolution cost of 3, ignoring Digi-Evolution requirements. It carries Ice Clad, so what this is that other than by or against security Digimon, you compare the number of Digi-Evolution cards instead of DP in this Digimon's battles. So effectively, if it has 4 and attacks a Digimon that has 2, it will win that battle, no matter what the DP is. Then all it turns, this Digimon gets 2000 DP as it's inheritable, so very, very good for the strategy as a whole. Now let's move into the green-red colors, which focus on the Spirit of Wind, specifically around Zoe. So let's move into the first Tinkermon and the Kazemon associated with the line. So starting off with the line here, we actually have a very similar strategy to the Penguinmon that we just looked at. So effectively, it carries the same effect. That your turn, once per turn, when this Digimon or any of your Tamers would evolve into multicolored green or red Digimon cards, reduce the Digi cost by 1. And instead of having jamming, the Tinkermon will give you piercing. Now let's talk about the new Kazemon. So it Digivolves on top of Zoe for a cost of 2, and then Zephyrmon for a cost of 0. Then when Digivolving, you suspend one of your opponent's Digimon. And then when attacking once per turn, one of your Digimon or Tamers may Digivolve into a green or red Digimon card with the hybrid trait in the hand with the Digi-Evolution cost reduced by 1. Then all turns when this Digimon would leave the battle area, other than by your effects, you may play one Tamer card with inherited effects from the Digimon's Digi-Evolution cards without paying the cost. Now let's move into the brand new Zephyrmon and the new Jet Selfimon. So for Kazemon, it Digivolves on top of Zoe for a cost of 3, then Kazemon for a cost of 1. It inherently carries piercing, and then on play, when Digivolving, one of your Digimon gets 3000 DP until the end of your opponent's turn. And then its inheritable is simply piercing, so very simple there. Then we have the new Jitselfimon, which is very similar to Dipenmon, whereas you can have a hand main effect by placing Kazemon and Zephyrmon from your hand, from your trash under one of your green or red Tamers. You Digivolve it into this card for a cost of 3, and then pretty much just what you have. Instead, the Jet Selfimon actually carries Raid, which is interesting enough. And then when Digivolving, suspend one of your opponent's Digimon or Tamers. It can't unsuspend until the end of their turn. And then all turns this Digimon gains 2000 DP is the inheritable, so very, very good. And now it's time to finally move into the final cards for, final Digimon cards for the support. So we have the brand new Susanomon Ace to go alongside the brand new Emperor Greymon here. So starting off with Susanomon Ace, because this one is a little bit more interesting. It Digivolves on top of Takuya Kambara or Koji Minamoto with 10 hybrid trait cards under it for a cost of 6. So that is very specific. And then specifically, it has the hand blast counter we know that most cards possess for Ace Digimon. And when Digivolving or when attacking, you delete one of your opponent's Digimon with 10,000 DP or lower. For each color in this Digimon's Digi-Evolution cards, you add 2,000 to this deletion effect. So, pretty interesting there. And then when attacking also, you have by placing up to 5 Tamer cards from this Digimon's Digi-Evolution cards as your bottom security cards. For each one trash, your opponent's top security card. So very simple there. And then also with the rule, this is also now considered as having the hybrid in its form. So very interesting. Moving into the new Kaiser Greymon or Emperor Greymon for those who want to call it that. We have a special evolution condition to Digivolve on top of Takuya Kambara with 5 hybrid trait cards under it for a cost of 5. And then when Digivolving for each color in this Digimon's Digi-Evolution cards, trash any one Digi-Evolution card from your opponent's Digimon and suspend one of their Digimon. Then this Digimon may attack. your turn once per turn. When this Digimon deletes your opponent's Digimon in battle, it gains security attack +1 for the turn, and it also unsuspends, allowing it to attack again. Now let's cover the brand new Tamers associated for specifically red. So we have a brand new Koji and Takuya to talk about. We also have Zoe, and we have a new Tommy. And we're going to start off by talking about the brand new Zoe first. So the brand new Zoe simply carries the standard Tamer effect, where you get to play this out if it's checked in security. By the start of your main phase, by trashing one card with the hybrid or 10 warriors trait in your hand, you draw one. Then for your turn, once per turn, when this Digimon deletes your opponent's Digimon in battle, you may play one Tamer card with inherited effects from your hand without paying the cost. That's obviously the inheritable, but just wanted to explain that's what Zoe does. Now let's move into the big boss of it, Koji and Takuya. So obviously they carry the very same effect of being able to play it from security if it's checked, but specifically for them, they are memory setters for the new support. So basically they set your memory to 3. And at the start of your main phase, you may place up to one hybrid trait card with different names from your trash under this tamer. For each of your other tamers, add 2 to the maximum number this effect may place. This also carries the rule that both this card is treated as Takuya Kambara / Koji Minamoto, so I do believe this counts as both of them. And then at the end of your turn, once per turn, this Digimon with the hybrid or 10 warriors trait may attack the player, so very, very good to give pseudo blitz. Now moving into obviously the final new tamer in Tommy, we have the simple effect obviously to play it out of security for free. And then at the start of your main phase, by trashing one card with the hybrid or 10 warriors trait in your hand, you get to gain 1 memory, so it's your memory booster. Then when attacking once per turn, trash the bottom Digi-Evolution card of one of your opponents. Then if your opponent has no Digimon with Digi-Evolution cards, you draw 1. So very good inheritable to associate it since it is a blue and red. Now we finally stop with the last 2 option cards, which is the final cards of the red support at least, but they also can work and function in different ways, but we have them here. So let's start off with the support with Wind to Flame and Ice to Sword being the first one, which starts off as the main. You may place up to 5 hybrid trait cards with different names from your hand or trash under one of your tamers. Then one of your tamers with 5 or more cards under it may Digivolve into Emperor Greymon in the hand or trash, ignoring Digi-Evolution requirements and without paying the cost. So very good. Then for security, you may play one Tamer card with inherited traits from your hand or trash without paying the cost. Then you add this card to the hand. Then we have Lord of Devastation and Rebirth. While you have a hybrid or 10 warriors trait Digimon, you may ignore this color's color requirements. So effectively, if you have any of the hybrid cards, you can use this card generically. Then main, one of your Digimon or Tamers may Digivolve into Susanomon in the hand or trash without paying the cost. Then by placing up to 4 of your Tamers with different colors as one of your Susanomon's bottom Digi-Evolution cards, gain 1 memory for each card placed. So very cool there. And then security, you may play 1 Tamer card with inherited effects from your hand or trash without paying the cost. Then you add this card to the hand. So Wind to Flame, Ice to Sword, Lord of Devastation, Rebirth, basically function is the same. Okay, and then that's all of the Power Red support. So let's start off, obviously, with what we can do with it. Very interestingly, I think this support is cool, which is the first thing to say. I do like the fact that all the red support is designed around the strategies. Now, if you're probably wondering, there are technically the Spirit of Water and the Spirit of, I think, Wood, which is weird. I don't know why it's called the Spirit of Wood, but, you know, it is what it is. The Spirit of Wood, which are Renamon and Arbormon's lines that technically are associated with Emperor Greymon's evolution, but there's a big reason why I did not actually put them in the video, and that's actually because they don't synergize well enough with the strategy at the moment. The biggest reason for this is the fact that all the Tamers that happen to be dual color red do have a secondary typing. But this then means if you play the pure deck that would be focused around Susanomon and Emperor Greymon, the biggest problem you're going to possess is getting the other colors into rotation effectively. Now, this is because they'll actually be bricks, in my opinion, because Renamon can only technically at this point digivolve on top of, say, Tommy, and for Arbormon, it could only digivolve on top of, say, um, Zoe. So effectively, unless the specific Digimon can digivolve on top of Red, that it doesn't share an additional color with all of the other, hybrid Digimon. And unfortunately, all the other hybrid Digimon, for the most part, are that are dual colored only synergize with red and purple, or blue and yellow. And unfortunately, in this case, there are only blue for Tommy, and there is no yellow associated with this line. So this means leaving out the spirit of wood and water. But specifically for the support, the advantage you have here is that it's more of a wanting to trash and also restack underneath your tamers with the brand new Takuya and Koji. So the thing that's interesting about Takuya and Koji is that if I'm correct with what it does, if you have out the maximum amount of tamers in the form of, say, Zoe and Tommy alongside the Takuya and Koji, you should be able to place up to like 5 or 6 hybrid cards from the trash underneath it, if I'm correct, because it says like 2 each. And if I'm right, Takuya and Koji technically count for um, 2 tamers, so they actually count as Takuya and Koji, so they're separate names, so that you'd be able to technically add from them 2 cards and then 2 from the others. So basically giving you a total, I think, of like 6 or 5 cards to put underneath. So basically it sets you up for going straight into Emperor Greymon immediately, and then after a turn, if you have even more cards to put underneath them, you could go straight into Susanomon on like turn 3, but you have to have a good setup. I think the problem this strategy has is it's a little bit slow. Like, it really needs a good like way to start. It has good support already to search, so you could play any of the generic stuff. I think honestly, Bokomon from BT7 and then Bokomon from this set is actually going to be very important, because what you're doing with them is you just want to kind of play them to get as much of your searching done, so that when you start setting up your tamers, that they're refunding memory as you digivolve on top of those tamers into other Digimon, and then basically you're getting memory back. You're being memory efficient. You're speeding up your plays to get the rotation going. Like, I see what the support wants to do, and it's not bad. It's just kind of tough when a lot of these cards need Tamers setup. So if there was a way to just start playing Tamers for free, specifically, I mean, like, actually just instead of hard playing them, it just lets you play a Tamer, then this would be a bit easier. Like, maybe if Pokemon said if this card's deleted, you get to play Digimon with inherited effects. So it'd be worth swinging into security, stuff like that. Um, I can kind of see this played with Ukomon, though, which is interesting enough because I think the Ukomon really does speed up this deck's ability to just kind of ramp, because you could search for the top 3, you have an extra breeding phase, you could play, since Pokemon's red now, you can digivolve it into the breeding area on red Digieggs. You obviously play Flamon. I think there's no reason you don't play Flamon. Honestly, the thing that's crazy is both Flamons are good now, or multiple Flamons are good, so you could search. You could use the one that lets you, I think, pitch a hybrid card and draw 2. I think that's going to be a really good card for this archetype specifically, because what it allows you to do now is put in trash the pieces you want, so that you now can make sure your rotation of the hybrid trait cards are good. Another good thing I like is that Grumblemon and Gigasmon are 2 to Digivolve on top, or at least Grumblemon is a 2 to Digivolve on top of level 3 Reds and Tamers. So what this allows Grumblemon to be is it allows it to spot removal specifically like Floodgate Digimon, but simultaneously be the piece you want that's your bridge from your tamers as well, because all the other hybrids are digivolving for 3 on top of their non-corresponding tamers or Digimon. So I think Grumblemon actually is a possible include. Gigasmon is a card I don't know if you include it, but definitely Grumblemon's like a 2 or 3 to maybe play, maybe 2, because it is your only like standard champion technically. So there's options there, unless you just want to dive full into like how the archetype's supposed to play. So there is that. Looking at each line specifically, though, I think the blue cards are obviously really, really good. I think because having jamming just really makes it really strong for like Korikakumon. The only thing I hate is that you really want to get Korihagumon in trash because you never want to really Digivolve into this thing unless it's going on top of Kumamon specifically. Otherwise, it's not trash. It's a really heavy investment, which is kind of one of the hard parts of the strategy. Is if you're just not drawing the right combination, you could be struggling really quick. Let's see what else. Kazumon support honestly is pretty stellar. I like the fact that they have piercing incorporated into like their effects with suspending. So yeah, we have the Kazumon support or the green red. I actually really like it because it's very interesting for this strategy because it's very straightforward. It wants to suspend your opponent's Digimon. It wants to pierce through. It wants to give you like early damage so that you're able to just kind of play around what they're doing. And I actually love it when they incorporate this stuff into multiple strategies just because it makes it a bit easier to flow. So I do think that the red Digimon cards probably have, I won't say they're the best synergy because I will look at the other stuff from BT18 soon. But I want to say that for Power Red, the advantage it has is that it basically is very streamlined with what you want to do. There's nothing really crazy here. And yeah, it gets the job done. I think the only problem is the deck's a little weird to play with, so you'd have to try it. It's one of those decks where you have to kind of like feel it out. But yeah, when we look at those lines, they're pretty good. But when we look at the titular bosses in terms of Emperor Greymon and Susanomon, the first thing is Emperor Greymon. Man, this card is just stupid easy to bring out in this deck because what you really want to do with this Emperor Greymon is that you set up and you go in. This thing should be doing at least 3 security checks every time it actually gets into rotation. And that's just because of its effect where when you attack, you should be able to do the first attack. If you do the stack correctly, you should have piercing with this. So it should be piercing and it should already have just an inherent swing. So you're basically setting it up for a piercing attack. And then after it deletes an opponent's Digimon, it restands and then gains security attack +1. So it should be doing at least 3 checks. That's mandatory. It should be doing at least 3 checks if the stack is correct. I think the only problem with this card is that it's not defensive at all. Now, some people say you can suspend an opponent's Digimon or strip their sources. The problem is it doesn't mean that it's getting rid of the threat, because even if you suspend your opponent's Digimon and you attack over one of them, if they have another one, Kaiser Greymon isn't doing anything. Like, the problem is it doesn't have any blocker, so you're basically just building this thing to kind of do damage. It's not doing anything else. Now, it does set up technically for Susanomon, which is, I think, the point of why it's not defensive at all. It's supposed that you can use Susanomon as a response. So Susanomon does a few things extremely well. First, it is basically just a really good archetype improvement over the original one from BT7. So, that's already kind of there. But with this card, it has a heavy investment to go into Takuya and Koji, but it makes sense for what the archetype is supposed to do. So the strategy wise, okay. But its effect to delete is very, very good because it already should have a couple colors underneath it. Like, unless for some odd reason you had to go into it on top of like your Kaiser Greymon for, I think it's like for 6. Like, if you had to go on top of it for 6 and then you weren't having any stack with Tamers or they got stripped, so you had to go into it. So you're only popping a 10,000 DP Digimon, but at least what you're doing here is the Kaiser Greymon will have 3 colors in its source, so you're at least popping up to 16,000, so pretty good. You're basically dealing with a level 7. And then when attacking by placing the 5 Tamers into the security sources or into the security, then for each one you get to banish one. It's basically like I would say a more archetype version of the Crimson Modes effect to burn security when they have 10 more cards in the trash. So I actually really love the fact that Susanomon does that. It's just kind of hilarious because it's like, by the way, we can do this now too. And it works actually a bit easier because it's a little bit easier to just stretch your Tamers out for rotation and then burning your opponent's security with Tamers you already need to play. So yeah, I'm just putting it out there. Susanomon's like hilarious. There's not really much to say about the Tamers. They really function for the strategy because they're basically your Digimon. I really wish that they could have for specifically Zoe and Tommy, probably made them 3-cost tamers. And the reason I say making them 3-cost tamers is that technically speaking, Tommy and Zoe don't net memory. Like, yes, Tommy gives you a memory when you pitch a card, but Zoe specifically to draw a card, Zoe's technically the worst one to see because she won't actually give you memory. So you basically are stuck with going into her or on top of her as just a tamer Digimon. But she doesn't net you anything except a draw. Whereas Tommy at least refunds you memory, and Takuya and Koji are memory setters. You know, that already is like a staunch improvement. And if they really wanted to, they could have just made them 3-cost, or her specifically a 3-cost, because it really would have helped out the strategy. The option cards are fantastic. I don't really have to talk about them. They're basically the same thing, but specifically for their corresponding ones. So obviously, Ice into Sword, or Ice to Sword, Wind to Flame. Ice to Sword is specifically for Kaiser Greymon, and Lord of Devastation and Rebirth is for Susanomon. So pretty much this is, where it is. I do advise, if you want to learn more about the strategy, watch the latest card protagonist video on Susanomon. That is actually the best way to learn how the deck plays, because I was trying to struggle originally trying to figure out how this deck worked, because like I get what it's trying to do, but I want to see how it worked in action. Watch that video, because that's exactly what the deck does. So yeah, that's pretty much my best thing I could do. But that's been What's the Scoop with the red cards from BT18. I do want to thank you guys so much for joining us on the 250 subscribers celebration, and enjoy the rest of the uploads coming up. So as always, this has been Brad from the Ad Army signing off, and for all of you out there, to sign on.